Hello, I'm Don Mitchell. Thanks for coming back to learn more about Disciple, the book that gives you 60 or even more experiences with drawing closer to God and fulfilling more of your calling from Him for expanding and improving His kingdom. We continue in the fourth part of Disciple today and the second lesson from week 3, which is entitled delightfully, Spend More Time on Your Most Fruitful Activities. Let me begin by quoting from the Bible in Luke chapter 12, verses 29 through 31, as translated in the New King James Version. And do not seek what you should eat, or what you should drink, nor have an anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows you need these things. But seek the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added to you. What a great message. As a result of having improved goals for your life, you can now become more productive for God's kingdom. One way to accomplish such a fine result is by spending more time on your most fruitful activities for improving and expanding His kingdom. The verses in Luke chapter 12, verses 29 to 31 present us with a remarkable promise. Seek God's kingdom as your priority, and He will take care of your needs. Are you ready to rely on that promise? Doing so obviously requires faith, but you cannot build such faith without acting as if you already have it, and then see what God does. The material in this lesson could be described in terms of putting things first, God's agenda. If you would like more detail for how to think about doing so, Lesson 4 and 2000% Living can be a helpful resource. My experience has been that most people can increase how much time they spend on their most fruitful activities for God's agenda by more than 10 hours a week without sacrificing anything important. In part, that's because most people are spending so little time on such godly activities. In part, it's also because most people spend so much time on activities that are not part of God's agenda and don't play any useful role. While I don't know whether your increased time to be spent such ways will be as large as 10 hours a week, I'm sure it will be more than you expect unless you're already engaged in full-time ministry. As part of prior lessons, you've already refocused your time. For instance, in days 1 and 2 of the second week in part 3, you were encouraged to spend more time in prayer. On days 1 and 2 of the third week in the same part, you developed and began to follow a Bible study routine. In this part, you began to share your testimony more often. Now, you should go beyond these fine beginnings. A useful next step is to keep track of how you spend all your waking hours over the course of a typical week or two. Assign each activity to one of the various categories such as work, commuting, household chores, watching television, surfing the web, Bible study, prayer, attending church services, sharing the gospel, volunteer work for Christian organizations, and various kingdom activities. After adding the totals of time spent for each activity in the category, assess that type's spiritual value. Activities such as prayer and Bible study would receive positive marks, while watching sitcoms on television would not. Also, check your time spent in terms of how well it aligns with your new goals. You may be surprised at how little, if any, time you are currently spending on some of such goals. Consider also when you are most productive and engaging in various activities. If you're like most people, you accomplish more at certain times of the day or on some days of the week, doing activities that require mental alertness and or physical strength. In addition, you may need quiet conditions for some activities, such as Bible study, to be most fruitful. You should look, too, for when you are least productive for certain activities, especially those that are most closely related to your goals. When should you be doing each of your most important activities for God's kingdom? Finally, design a plan for spending your time to increase advancing your goals at the ideal times for doing so. As you do, think of yourself as creating the life that God intended for you. As you plan these changes, don't burden yourself with more than you can handle. Instead, focus on unburdening yourself of whatever is holding you back from doing what would make you more fruitful. As part of doing so, consider how getting help from others could contribute to your increased fruitfulness. Our minds and bodies are better equipped in many cases to keep doing the same things than for shifting into better activities. Although planning that occurs in this lesson will help to provide direction for shifting time spent towards more fruitful activities for God's kingdom, it will also need His strength and His encouragement to make and maintain the changes. Use your goals as a foundation for building your determination and attention to change. Stay in prayer about how to do so. The measurements and thinking described in this lesson for assessing where you are now and spending your time will probably help encourage making the necessary changes. The following questions are designed for making that self-assessment. What are your most fruitful activities for helping to expand and improve God's kingdom? Second, how much time did you spend on them yesterday? During the day before? 3, how much more time would you like to spend on these activities each day? 4, how might that increase be accomplished? 5, what shifts in the times when you work on these activities should occur? 6, who can help you make these changes? 7, what prayers will you make to gain direction, strength, and encouragement from God and others? 8, what should you do today to begin spending more time on your most fruitful activities? 9, how do the answers to these questions of spending more time in your fruitful activities make you feel? 10, what lessons would you share with others about your experiences just now in determining how to increase the time you spend on your most fruitful activities? 11, how will you maintain a focus on increasing time spent on your most fruitful activities? And finally, let me remind you of this week's memory verse, which is quite simple, from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 17 in the New King James Version. As the Lord has called each one, so let him walk, and may you do also. God bless you. Thanks for listening and watching, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care, and God bless you.